Ladies and gentlemen, on this channel, I share games with you that I am both proud of and games that I am embarrassed about. I also analyze games, which I'm very proud to analyze, and games that you send me that I'm embarrassed about on your behalf. But in today's video, we'll be covering some games where I played at a very high level and I defeated two players whose ratings are frequently above 3,100 on chess.com, two very, very strong grandmasters, but I did it in a very unique format. And I'm going to share that with you in this video. And that is because starting tomorrow, February 7th, 2025, I'm here. I'm at the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour 2025. I'm here making content. I'm here. I'm going to be a commentator as well. It's at the very nice Weissenhaus Resort. So whenever you catch this video, you will see two epic chess games, which I'll show you, and I'll put a link in the description for you to follow along the event, which begins tomorrow. It has some of the best players in the world. Magnus Carlsen, Gukesh, the world champion, is here. Hikaru Nakamura is here. Fabiano Caruana, and many, many more. Now, what is freestyle chess, in case you don't know? It's not exactly the name. It is the name of the tour. It is the name of the event. But really, what it is a format of chess where every game there is a random position selected by the generator, where the king has to be between the two rooks and the bishops have to be on opposite color, and that is because castling is possible with the kings. And then obviously the bishops, they have to alternate. So this was a game against Grandmaster MSB2, who is Matthias Blubaum, who's a very strong German Grandmaster, and this was a game against Armenian Grandmaster Aram Hakobian. Now you may realize my rating is 2,100 and theirs are 2,600. That is because the rating system on chess.com has not yet been updated. Actually, my Blitz rating is usually 2,700 and theirs are 3,100. But yeah, that's just a little bit about this. And I won both of these games. I'm very proud. I want to show them to you. Be two very strong grandmasters in the tournament that happens on chess.com on Fridays. So first, we begin here. Now, again, there are no chess openings. Generally, if your queens are sort of positioned in the corners, you can make first moves, and suddenly there is a pawn that can just be captured on the other side of the board. Now, what's funny is there are gambits in Fischer Random or Freestyle Chess. You can play things like pawn to b6, and if the queen takes the pawn over here, after this, there is a very strong counterattack on the other side of the board, which is very fascinating, like that the queen, can get stuck and then has to get booted around, and, black already gets a very good position. So that's actually quite fascinating. But okay, in this game, I was not so familiar, and the funny thing about games like this is that, as you can see here, black can already get a borderline losing position in just 3 moves, which is kind of insane. I am not doing well here at all. Notice that my experienced opponent opened up the 2 long diagonals of the bishop and the queen in the corner, because obviously those pieces like those things. I should not have counter-opened my bishop. In fact, I shouldn't have even engaged with those pawns. I should have maybe gone b6, leaving my opponent a little bit of space here. But overall, yeah, obviously just leaving a little bit of room so that the pawns don't get tangled, because it seems like in this format space advantages are very, very nice, and if I ever try to create some counterplay, which is what I did in this game, my opponent can just ignore it and just basically control me. So this was our opening after 5 moves. Now obviously for the amateurs, for the newbies, for the kind of just regular chess fans, this is kind of confusing, because let's be honest, regular chess is already confusing. So if you shuffle the pieces on literally every single game, there is no structure. You can let me know in the comments how you think about it. I mean, to be honest, for me, freestyle is really interesting to watch the top players play, but myself, I will probably just stick to regular chess, because it's hard to gain any sort of structure or understanding when the pieces are shuffled every single game. So by the way, you may be asking yourself, how do you castle in this format? Well, you castle by castling. If your king and rook on one side are able to immediately go to the castling squares, that's just what you do. Look at what I did. I literally flipped my king and rook. Now to castle the other way, you would need this square free and that square free. So you would need to have the king and the rook like this moving next to each other. So the bishop would have to move. But okay, none of that really matters. This was our position after 7 turns. And what's funny is I'm already doing very, very poorly. I'm doing poorly because my opponent has a very nice infiltration here. I'm not going to be able to fight back against this. It's going to be there forever. And now my opponent will simply use pawns to break apart my position. Actually, already I was feeling extremely concerned. I was like, my position is really, really bad. And Matthias is probably just going to play something like f4. So I was very disheartened when that's exactly what he did, just opening up his rooks. And if you notice that this is going to get out of control really, really fast. He has the bishop pointed at my king, and he has 2 rooks that are going to open up. So obviously taking is not good. Pushing is probably not good. I think pushing here just loses the game. So I went here, trying to defend myself. And when he went here, I went back to protect my king with my knight. But this is just absolutely miserable. The computer wants me to put my knight on h4, which I thought was just a bad move, because I even thought he could go here and trap my knight. As it turns out, that's actually exactly what he should do. But, you know, I'm able to escape. So that would have been a bit better to plant my knight on the h4 square. I didn't really, you know, consider that. And then this, and then I kind of built a protection like this. Now, black is much worse here. Black's position is really not good because white has double space. White has much more activity. White sort of controls when the breaking spot is going to happen. And yeah, my position is really, really dangerous. So he goes e4, which I thought was reasonable. And I went knight here. Probably I should have gone d4. You know, like, probably it made a lot of sense to just lock the position as much as possible. But I was really concerned that my long diagonal here would be absolutely slaughtered. I mean, I did not know what to do if he just plays a move like knight here and suddenly the bishop is coming. But I do have defense with my knight. But yeah, as you can see, the tactics are really, really crazy. The position doesn't look normal at all. And now I retreat again. And the second he sees me retreating, he fires another punch. And yeah, now the center is guaranteed to open up, which is obviously only going to benefit the player that has more development and more space. So you see, there are things in freestyle chess that you can follow along, just like in regular chess, right? Like if a person has a space advantage in chess, then it would be advantageous to launch some sort of attack. If a person has an open king, it would be advantageous to launch an attack. At this point, I just thought, well, I'm going to lose. I mean, I didn't know that it was plus 3.3, as you see there from the evaluation bar. But I figured I was in very bad shape. So pawn takes, knight takes. Okay. Now here I was expecting a handful of things. He ended up playing this move, bishop takes knight, followed by pawn takes. But I thought he was going wrong. I mean, already I was thinking, like, why would he give away the bishop, right? Like, this trade only opened up my rook. I thought this was not very good. He could have already even played a move like bishop h5, which is just not a move you're generally seeing, and my rook is kind of trapped. So if bishop h5 and pawn to g6, of course he's going to take, and now his rook is open. And even if he just goes back to d1, I mean, this has only weakened my king even more, right? And it's only opened up his rook again. So, but he did it like this, and right here I played knight takes and just thought, I actually am not that bad anymore. I am down on time, but the position is not as hopeless as I once thought. Now he played knight to a5. Which is obviously trying to come here, and I just thought, okay, c6. And I thought I wasn't really afraid of this move, because even though I'm blocking my bishop, I'm obviously, I can take the knight on a5. I can just get rid of the knight. So I was very annoyed when he went back, because now we have the exact same position, except I move my pawn. He can move his knight back. I cannot move my pawn back, right? I was like, well, okay. I mean, maybe we start bringing out our pieces from the back rank. So I played bishop h4. I thought this was a reasonable move. Because if you look at my position, I have 6 out of my 7 pieces on the back rank. I guess he also has a lot, but my position is worse. The idea was not really to take the knight, although in some positions I could. The idea was mostly like start bringing out your pieces. He went knight d2, which was a nice move. He's obviously trying to play knight to e4, and I played a5. I thought this move made sense. I thought it made sense as he stepped back to try to attack his pawn structure, so a5 looked like a reasonable move to me. And then he centralized, and I traded, and was like, okay, let's just, let's come here. I mean, basically, I'm trying to attack him on the edge of the board. I mean, I definitely feel like he is better, and the computer thinks he is still better with a plus 1.9 advantage. But nobody really knows what that means, because the computer wants white to play king h1. I mean, if king h1 is the way you have to prove your advantage, then I'm sorry, but I think you're kind of a lunatic. Knight to d6, I played rook e7. Okay, I could have also played rook d8. I think it was fine. And now is kind of the climax of the position. I have 30 seconds on the clock. He has 55. I'm not actually creating a threat. Like queen here, he would take, and it would be check, and that would be bad. And here I had calculated that he can take my knight and take my pawn, and he did that, but actually, after the simple retreating move, I have a very nice position. It's quite fascinating. Like, his advantage is only +1, whereas in this position, if he had not done that and instead went f6, which is a very sophisticated move. The point of f6 is that it's a clearance sacrifice, and he is getting a knight to the f5 square. And basically, in many attacks now, he has a queen open, he has this, right? So one pawn move, even though I can capture it 3 different ways, not with the knight because I would lose my king, this is a very, very nice idea. And yeah, I mean, it's +4, basically, if he plays f6. But he did this, and winning a pawn only granted him an advantage of +1. Which is kind of instructive. It shows you that, you know, material doesn't really matter if you're going to relinquish your attacking chances. He also gave me 2 pawns. Like, this is the fascinating thing about Fischer Random or freestyle chess, is that the pawn structures are really weird. And all of a sudden, I mean, I just basically have 2 connected pawns in the center of the board, which can just walk together, which is going to be really tough for him. I mean, he has 2 over here as well. So he went queen a1. I decided not to trade the queens. He went queen d1. I decided not to trade the queens. And suddenly, even though I only had 12 seconds on the clock, I couldn't help but feel like the game was completely shifting. He went here, and I went bishop f6. And all of a sudden, I was like, I'm sorry, am I not just completely fine here? And I realized I was. I only have 7 seconds on the clock, but everything is looking good for me. And it was looking really nice. He went rook c1. I gave him a check in the center of the board. And then I just played bishop c6. I wanted my bishop off the last rank. I didn't want his pawn to push at all. And here's something completely funny happened. So he played rook b1, right? His idea of rook b1 is to play rook b8. I played h6 because I wanted to protect my king. And then he went here. And in one move, he blundered his other pawn, and not only did he blunder his other pawn, his knight is now completely trapped. The only move that it has is knight c8, rook e8, and then the knight can escape, but I will start pushing my pawns forward and probably win. And I won his knight. And queen h4, and I just start pushing. I just have an extra bishop. My king has a Luft. It's a perfect country to say the word Luft. Germany. I'm in Germany right now, and I'm just totally winning. It's kind of insane. Now I just have to not panic. I push my pawn all the way to the second rank. I take this pawn. I go queen f6, offering a trade of queens, and I trade, and I play queen e6, and then I just protect my king, and we start pushing, and I'm completely winning. My king is safe. My everything is safe. And what's really insane is that Matthias Blubaum played in the Fischer Random World Championship some time ago. I finished it nicely here with queen h3 check, pinning, and queen g2 mate. He played in the Fischer Random World Championship, actually, the last one that happened. Yeah, I managed to win. I've actually beaten him 3 out of 10 games now, which is not horrible considering he's a very good player. So I will take those odds. But it was a huge comeback game for me. I mean, it was I was doing very, very poorly. The next one was much nicer, I have to say. Now, look, you can compare the starting position, right? So here you have the king and the rooks, you have a knight in the corner, you have a queen on the queen side, and the bishop, one bishop in the center, one in the corner. Here you have a king in the center, whereas here you already had the king kind of tucked away. You have a queen in the corner, so it's going to probably not make sense to castle short side. Probably makes more sense to castle long side. You probably have to play b3 to open up like this, right? And by the way, both of us, that's exactly what we did. And now the question is, what do you do now? Like, do you develop the knights? Where do you develop them? How do you do this? What's funny is that generally, if you have a bishop in the corner and you have a queen in the corner, the best combo is like this. And what's hilarious is that this was the best way to play. b3 followed by h4 so that the queen can poke out, and now you have your dark squared bishop and your queen firing from both directions. Again, this is really not like, I mean, I like regular chess more. I'm not against playing this format, but I'm not going to, have this format replace regular chess for me by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I still prefer regular chess. I was trying to move my camera there for a second. I might have floated. But yeah, I mean, still, this is quite interesting. The tactics are interesting. And what's funny is that here I just bolted my queen out, but this was actually a stupid move. I should have went here. I didn't realize this pawn was under attack. Because again, it's freestyle chess, right? Like, you just don't realize things. I mean, the rook, the knight, and the knight, but nobody's protecting the pawn. So I went here and I was like, wait a minute, that was stupid. So what did I do here? I went back. I was like, my queen is more useful in the h2 square. Probably I shouldn't have done this. I mean, maybe I could have just kept developing and castled and so on. You also never know if you want to put your pawns out first, or do you want to put your knights in front of your pawns, right? You know, do you want to play knight c3, knight d3? I have no idea. And again, both of these players are very, very good blitz players. So for me, the most important thing in the early game was just like play fast. I thought a4 made a lot of sense. I was baiting my opponent into, of course, taking, and then I would have an open rook, and that would be really nice for me. But if this, I would just go back. And I actually was completely satisfied with this because the lock structure means that I will not be attacked on that side, and then I would sort of switch my play to the other side of the board. So watch this. Knight c6. Here I played this nice move g4. I thought this was actually really smart, although the computer doesn't like it. My point was that like my rook and my queen and my bishop are all going to point in that direction, so why don't I open that side of the board? I mean, it seemed pretty logical. But what's funny is that the computer prefers the move e4 because the pawn is hanging, which again, these types of tactics just float in this format all over the place, and you have to be really, really sharp. And the point is that, you know, my opponent would have to waste the move defending, and then I would improve my position. I will put my knight behind the pawn, and this makes a lot of sense because you kind of want your knights and your pawns to fight for the center together, which is pretty normal, like even in regular chess. But I went g4. I thought this was, you know, the right idea. And, you know, he didn't respond the best way. Like you see here, the computer thinks black is better, but I'm not sure it even fully understands the position. And it goes queen h6. And already, you know, I just developed both my knights and I have an advantage. So clearly I was understanding something in this format because, you know, in the last game I was getting destroyed in the opening. And in this format, I'm doing quite well. Not getting destroyed, but I mean, you know, I have like a nice position. Knight f5, knight f4. I don't have anywhere near the type of advantage that existed in the previous game for me, but, you know, this was, yeah, I was pretty happy. So my opponent went e5. Now, e5 immediately set off alarm bells because I was like, okay, right away I'm thinking corresponding squares. Like that pawn is there, but on the light squares I'm obviously doing some good stuff. I wanted to play the move f4 here. As we've seen already, pawn play and freestyle, like we see, you know, this and this and this and all this like random pawn play. Pawn play is very important in this type of format because somehow the position opens up in a beneficial way for your pieces. So I thought about f4. I rejected f4 because I thought e4, and then I thought something like d5, and I thought my opponent is very happy. My opponent is not very happy apparently because I just have bishop here. I didn't understand the point of this move from a distance. I didn't even consider this move. Like this move maybe in a long format makes sense. But at first I was like, you know what, let's not do that. Let's just develop the bishop, which is also a pretty reasonable move. And you'll notice I've developed my knights, my rook, 1, and I'm planning to castle. So I'm probably going to castle like this, and then I will bring my rook over here, maybe play f4. I felt like I was understanding the position on a very high level. He went knight e7 and we traded, and this already means he cannot castle. If you remember the traditional rules of chess, if you move your rook, you cannot castle the king, right? So he did it like this, which means that he cannot castle. And I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7 pawns on the dark squares for my opponent. I'm thinking the light squares are weak. So what did I play in this position? Queen h1. I thought, again, this was a pretty sophisticated move. However, the computer, again, wants me to play f4. But I, again, rejected it on the grounds that I thought he would overtake the center. I'm wrong. So queen h1, he centralizes his queen, and I castle queenside. And so now I'm ready with my pawn play. Like this was my plan from the very beginning. I mean, in the very beginning, when I played g4 and I brought out my queen and everything, he played a nice move, though. He played rook h8, right? And I played a move here, which I thought was quite funny. I played queen to b7. Which I thought was quite sophisticated. I thought, you know, I'm going to make him weaken his structure a little bit, and I assumed he cannot move his rook because I would go like here. Maybe he can, and then in this position he can make a draw with me. No, sorry, in this position he can make a draw with me with rook a8. Obviously there I would be attacking this pawn. But he went here, so I went here instead. I thought this was a kind of a nice idea. So I go queen here from the corner. Look where my queen was. And then when I make him retreat, now my queen makes an improvement and his queen went back. So again, I felt like I was a step ahead in this game. I felt like very sharp mentally and like I was doing all the right things. And now it's time to play my move f4. Like this is like the next progression of my position. What do I do with the move f4? First of all, I'm going to open up the f file for my other rook. Second of all, I'm going to open up my dark squared bishop. Third of all, I'm going to break apart the center. Last game, I played like a grandmaster who got punched in the face and was scrambling to kind of like get to safety. In this game, I just straight up felt like I was outplaying a very, very strong grandmaster. Like playing f4, for example, he went f6, and I traded here, and now, it's kind of time for the next phase. Like, how do I keep putting pressure? I thought, okay, it's the only piece I have that's not playing, so let's play rook f1. And in general, in a position like this, when you are really putting pressure on your opponent, you will always have some winning idea. Here I have rook g4, rook e4, and I'm +4, which is a crazy evaluation. I mean, I would have never thought about it in a million years. The threat is knight to f4. But what's even crazier is that if I play queen f3 attacking the rook, the next threat is just simply taking. I just completely overwhelm my opponent. I sacrifice in the center, I coordinate my pieces, and because he cannot castle, it looks like he can castle, but it's Fischer Random or Chess 960, so the rook moved, and he cannot castle. He is just going to get obliterated. Now, I didn't do that. I went knight c4. I thought, okay, I'm going to trade, and I'm just going to kind of make improvements. I didn't want a queen trade, though. And then he went knight ed5, and now alarm bells started ringing. I have many, many sacrifices. I have 3 pieces pointing on e5, a pointing on f6, and pointing on g7. All of my pieces are pointing at something in his position. I am overwhelming him. He has an unprotected rook here. He has a rook in the corner. The king cannot castle. His bishop hasn't moved. So you start kind of thinking, like, do I have a tactic? Is there any way I can break through the position? And, I'm Gotham Chess, for God's sake. So what did I do? Of course, I can just play the move rook c4. The move rook c4 attacks the queen and threatens queen to g6. Of course, he can play something like queen d7, but I'm still apparently winning if I sack the knight. But sacrificing the knight is boring. I'm Gotham Chess. I sacrificed the rook. So I did. Rook takes g7. But what's funny about the sacrifice rook takes g7 is that I'm not taking the bishop. I'm going queen g6. Oops. Now his king sticks around, and I pick up the rook. So now I have an extra pawn, and his king is stranded in the center of the board. And I'm just very happy. He can play rook c8, but because it's freestyle, right, and he's attacking me here, simple knight e1. And when I saw this from a distance, that I can have 4 out of 5 of my pieces on the back rank, but I'm still doing very well. I played it, and by the way, perhaps the most impressive thing about this game for me is the time. I was not nervous. 27 seconds each. I mean, I'm keeping even on the time, and I have a very, very good position. I'm going to play queen g6, queen g4, push the pawn. He went knight f4, and I went queen g4. It was not the best move, but okay, at this point, like, you have to play fast. And now I gave a check, and I realized that I was just winning the game. Why am I winning? Because if the king goes up, I play queen h7, and I take the bishop. I'm just winning. He probably has to play queen e8. He didn't, so I took his bishop. Now I'm just up a bishop. He went knight e2, knight f4, and this is a completely unnecessary move, but you might as well sacrifice another rook. So I sacrifice 2 rooks, I take with check, and I take on f6. And the whole time, my knight, my king, and my bishop just sit on the first rank. And this is the absolutely fascinating thing about this format, right? This is protected. Of course, if he trades the queens, he's just going to a losing endgame. So I did this. Threatening this, and also I have threats maybe potentially to back up and attack the pawn on a5. My heart is pounding at this point, of course, that's why I have 8 seconds on the clock, but at least I cannot lose. I mean, the thing about this position is my king and my entire structure is completely safe. So he went king a8, and I just traded the queens. I just figured, like, look, this is the best way to do it. Knight here, he went rook here, I went knight e1, and we scrambled a little bit here, but I won all his pawns, and this is easy. I mean, I just have to advance and not lose on time. I don't remember how I did this. At this point, somewhere, he blundered his rook. But I had, I didn't think he was going to do that, and I was just ready to push my pawn, so I think I spent like 0.5 seconds, and I just pushed. I completely didn't see that, but okay, obviously this was the way I was trying to win. The only thing that he can do here is maybe get a stalemate, but as long as his king has legal moves, that's it. I'm threatening b7, I'm threatening knight c6, I'm threatening bishop f4. I felt like an absolute genius when I won this game. I mean, I have to tell you, like, I thought this was sensational. I was so happy with this game. And he's a really, really good player. We've only played once before, and he beat me pretty convincingly at Rum. He's a very good player. His blitz rating is 3100 consistently, and he's won Title Tuesday before, so yeah, this is an interesting format. I mean, I have to tell you, sometimes in positions like this, I really felt like I was understanding things quite well. In the previous game, I got a horrendous position, but what can you do? Yeah, if you watch this video in the future, I hope you enjoyed. And if you're going to watch this in the first week of February and the second week of February of 2025, I'll be covering the Grand Slam Tour here at Weissenhaus, 1.5 hours north of Hamburg, Germany. Very nice place, and content will be on my Instagram. Content will be on YouTube as well. So enjoy. And your man is not that bad. Really not that bad. Sometimes I play good chess. Now get out of here.